the Palestinian resistance hasn't surrendered, which is something that Israel and the U.S. have always kind of just assumed that they would, not just in the last 18 months, but in 77 years. So thank you
Yes.
for giving us that
And they will
context.
not surrender. And if
Yeah.
there's any kind of talk about disarming Gaza, that's not going to happen. And
No.
the ceasefire negotiations are going to be dignified for the people of Gaza. That's the responsibility of Qassam, and they took a chance, they took a
Yeah.
gamble, releasing this American soldier, hoping that that would move things along
Yeah.
in the ceasefire negotiations, but also that it would open the borders for aid, which is what they understood was going to happen, and
Yeah.
hasn't happened yet, and doesn't seem imminent. And it looks
No.
like that Trump, that this was duplicitous and
Yeah.
criminal by Trump.
It was a gamble, and with any gamble, there's a risk that it won't pay off. And I think it was a gamble based on things they were hearing and being told from the Americans, that a goodwill gesture
Yeah.
of releasing this dual citizen who was captured, let's remember, from a tank while enforcing the siege of Gaza. Who left his home in New Jersey. I've seen contradictory news reports. I've seen some local news reports in New Jersey calling him a New Jersey native. Others have said that he was born in Israel but moved to New Jersey with his family when he was at a very young age. But what isn't in dispute, that as an adult, as a young adult, this person volunteered, as a young American adult who lived all his life in the United States, volunteered to leave his country and volunteer for a foreign military that was enforcing occupation and apartheid and brutality on people who had done him no harm. And that's, I think, important to say, because of the effort to portray him as some kind of innocent victim in all of this. He was a prisoner of war who took that chance. And Hamas took the chance of releasing him in the hope that the Trump administration would make good on the kinds of things that were being heard. I was going to do a whole thing looking at, some of the statements that were coming out of the Trump administration before his trip to the Gulf region this week, where there were people close to Trump, senior Trump advisors, saying that Trump wants the war to end. And there was a lot of speculation or hope that a ceasefire would be announced during this visit. And it's coming to an end with his trip, with Trump's arrival in the United Arab Emirates. And we actually have a video of him being welcomed in the United Arab Emirates that we can take a look at now.
Oh,
So that's Trump being received in the UAE by Mohammed bin Zayed, the ruler, and that was a tradition. That's apparently a traditional Khaliji dance by the women, and I don't want to mock anyone's traditions, but just the whole scene of Trump being welcomed and fawned over and treated like a hero, and lavishing investments on him while he is funding and arming a genocide is just so disgusting.
Yeah.
And we're almost at the end of this visit, and there's been no announcement of a ceasefire. What there has been the lifting of sanctions on Syria, which is a good thing, because those sanctions, by the way, were always aimed at the Syrian people. They were always calculated and intended to cause suffering to ordinary Syrians. And so anyone who wanted the best for Syrians should always have wanted those sanctions never to have been put in place in the first place, but certainly to be lifted. But the sheer hypocrisy that these sanctions were imposed knowingly to inflict suffering on Syrians when there was a government that the United States and Israel and its allies didn't like, and it's lifted now that an ISIS Al-Qaeda regime is in power in Syria. And I don't mince my words about that, because that's who Ahmed al-Shara, Abu Muhammad al-Julani is. He was an ISIS emir and a leader of Al-Qaeda, who supposedly split from it, but for purely cosmetic reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And all the effort was put into rehabilitating the, what's the right word? Normalizing relations with the new Al-Qaeda regime, or ex-Al-Qaeda regime, if we're to be generous. In Damascus, Turkish President Erdogan phoned into that meeting between Donald Trump and al-Shara. We didn't see any similar public effort to end this genocide in Gaza, nothing whatsoever. It's utterly shameful that this is where these Arab regimes are putting their efforts. And just a couple of news items that kind of underscore this, that came out since we started the program. One of them is this news that actually, let's start with the second one, Tamara, and that's the news that let's start with the second one, Tamara. Did I give you the right one about? I'm sorry, I mixed up the links. So it's the first link. There we go. Let's stick with this. Yeah, so this news came out where Bassem Naim, a member of the political bureau of Hamas, confirms that the U.S. is still holding direct talks with the U.S. on ending the Gaza war. But what is there to talk about? Because the United States could end the war with a phone call. That was true under Biden. It's true under Trump. The U.S., Israel is entirely dependent on the United States to carry on this genocide. And so, I don't know, there's not a lot of point reading the tea leaves. If the U.S. wants the war to end, they can end it. So far, they don't want it to end, the genocide to end, I should call it, not the war. And so it's continuing. And the second story, did I give you I just want to make sure. It's not going to the right place, Tamara, the link. It's one of these live blogs that doesn't necessarily show the right place. But Haaretz is reporting, and I'll just read it. It's a brief blurb from Haaretz. Senior Israeli security officials have held meetings in recent months with counterparts from the regime of Syrian leader Ahmed al-Shara, Haaretz has learned. The meetings are being held at the initiative and with the mediation of Qatar, which maintains ties with both Syria and Israel. According to a Middle Eastern source, the meetings have focused on initial contact aimed at establishing a channel for message exchanges and preventing escalation in the region, while Israel publicly maintains a cautious stance towards al-Shara's regime. Qatar and other countries have conveyed messages to Israel indicating that al-Shara is not seeking confrontation or escalation, and that the suspicion towards him is unfounded. So this is where they're putting their effort in trying to get Israel to, and this is why, we've said it time and again, even an Al-Qaeda leader, an ISIS emir is acceptable to the United States and to Israel, and they will talk to him, is because he's willing to abandon any pretense of supporting resistance to Israel's colonial barbarism in the region against Palestinians, against Lebanon, and against Syria. Syria. Syria is being bombed and devastated by Israel, and this new US-backed Al-Qaeda front is on board with that. And Qatar, which is supposedly a mediator in trying to end the genocide in Gaza, that's where they're putting their efforts, in making Israel more comfortable and more welcome and less opposed in the region, while it massacres and murders and starves to death Palestinians. These are the priorities of these sick Arab regimes.
It's really frustrating as well how, we saw this normalization with Israeli occupation and apartheid, and now Israeli genocide in Syria with this, with the new Al-Qaeda regime in Syria. We saw it coming a decade ago. We said this is exactly what's going to happen. This is the reason for the dirty war against Syria, and there was a lot of people who attack that kind of positions as Assadist or whatever, or denying Syrians their agency. And said, oh, that's not going to happen, and came up with wild ideas about you know once HTS, later on saying once HTS gets into power, it would be
That's
more ready.
Tahrir al-Sham, the
Yeah,
rebranded Al-Qaeda franchise that Ahmed al-Shara heads.
yeah, that Syria would be in a better position to resist Israel, whereas actually,
No, they're handing
Jolani,
everything over to Israel
yeah,
now.
exactly, it's the dismantlement of Syria as a state.
Yeah,
That's
and
what's
and
happening.
all of these Gulf regimes lavishing tens of billions of dollars, if not trillions of dollars, at the United States, or at least pledging it in new weapons deals. And for what? I mean, for what? Yes, these are protectorates of the United States. These are vassals of the United States. But has the United States ever protected any of its vassals? We've said this time and again. Where is the South Vietnamese regime today? Where is the puppet regime the US installed in Afghanistan today? Where is Hosni Mubarak today? US protection and promises of protection have never been guarantees that your regime will survive. Where is the Shah of Iran? And to bank on and bet on American protection in the time of Donald Trump, where you don't know from one day to the next what this man is going to do or say, seems to me completely self-defeating, even from a pure standpoint of self-interest. But it's just also lacking in any moral or ethical content or vision or humanity to tell him. They could have said, President Trump, we will welcome you with red carpets and girls swinging their hair left and right and music, but stop the genocide. We'll give you an airplane. We'll give you our $400 million flying palace, but stop the genocide. And to do all this, it is so distasteful and so repulsive to see, while what's going on in Gaza is continuing, what 𝐓𝐡𝐞 told us about, what we saw in Nora's report. I'm sorry, I'm just expressing my visceral disgust at this traveling circus that we're seeing.
Yeah, I think that's how we all feel, Ali. It is absolutely repulsive that still no one is forcing Israel to stop its massacres and slaughters, and the starvation that, as 𝐓𝐡𝐞 said, everyone knows it's happening. Now, what are we going to do? Who's going to do something about it? There are, thousands of trucks that have been waiting at the boundary, at the gates that Israel has closed for 75 days, and no one in the world, no regional power, no court can enforce any sort of pressure to open those crossings, to stop Israel. It is absolutely despicable. I don't know where we go from here.
I think maybe we can sort of wind down on a somewhat positive note. I just want to note that the Georgetown student from India who was imprisoned as part of the wave of the Trump crackdown on behalf of Israel. The Georgetown scholar Badr Khan Suri was released at the orders of a federal judge. as was Rumeysa 𝐓𝐡𝐞. We talked about that last week. And in both cases, the federal judges pointed out that the imprisonment of these individuals was a direct attack on the First Amendment and chilling free speech, and that therefore their release was necessary. So the Trump campaign of shock and awe, of cracking down on dissent, is now hitting the wall of the law. And
Mahmoud Khalil
those
remains in ICE
I was going to
detention.
say
and
Mahmoud
that's-
Khalil remains in ICE detention.
Yeah.
We want to see him free. We want to see them all free, and we want to see students and everyone free of the fear of speaking out that this government is trying to impose. But those are good signs, and they're reminders that that a lot of people came together to support these individuals who were targeted, who were singled out to make examples of. And those collective efforts, the legal support, the community support, the protests, have yielded results and are working. So that's another encouragement to us, that however sort of dismaying these scenes are, that we are still strong and we're powerful collectively, and we have to keep that up in the US, in Europe, in the UK, where the repression is intense. I haven't followed it closely just because there's so much going on, but Germany has been following the Trump path too, targeting students for deportation because of their activism. And recently, a court in Germany overturned 4 deportation orders for students there. That's something that I know we'll be talking, we're hoping in an upcoming show, talk about the repression across Europe. But this just to point out that we can we can continue to push back.